Surprised to see this in the LPL. Bit of a fun fact that Graves is 15-40 at the moment. He has a horrible win rate, but Haro, this has been his best champion in 2020. He was a giga hyper carry in that year as well. So I think if anyone can do it, Haro can, and we'll see what prio he can add as he tries to farm it up as well with the Azir by his side.
Yeah, another Azir pick. We see actually the Gnar being picked up here for Colt. So Colt finally getting something that isn't going to be a Scion. Definitely trying to get a little bit more pressure here into that top side. And with the junglers, solo laners being picked up here by LGD. Again, we're probably going to see a more of a focus down towards this bot side as both teams look to try and just keep their supports and AD carries close to their chest.
This is just such a different meta in this series because a lot of teams in the LPL will prioritize the bottom lane. We see the Tristana coming here and probably going to be seeing things like a Samira ban, you know, even the Xayah ban I think I'd like to see from RW. But both these teams prioritizing comfort in the solo lanes. Uniboy once again returning to that Viktor. We have Colt on the Gnar. So got some decent scaling on both sides, but we're now just going to see champions like Rel get taken away as well. And I think that bottom lane priority has kind of shifted in comparison to what we saw in game one where Kramer got that Kai'Sa first pick and things kind of changed from there.
I really like this Tristana pickup for the one reason of, like, you ban out now the kind of main AD carries, like you said, the Samira, the Xayah, those kind of things, and you're kind of forcing Kramer onto an Ezreal. Now, Kramer is not a bad Ezreal by any stretch of the imagination, but Tristana is able to do so much against something like an Ezreal. It's just such a bait pick of, like, Tristana is almost seen as, like, it can level 2 you all in. It's very difficult for you to get away, and the longer the game goes on, yes, the Ezreal picks up damage, but the Tristana has so much range that you're never really around her to actually get your damage down and get those mystic shots off. But it is going to be the Thresh, going to be the final ban here. Actually, I like that a little bit as well because it stops the Aphelios from being picked up here from the side of LGD.
And then Rel on top of that from LGD, right? We got triple support ban in the second phase from both these teams. And I think for LGD, they had to ban away the Rel, otherwise it was going to be taken. And now we move back down the list of priority to support champions. And Leona's dropped off a bit as we've seen the Rel, we've seen the Alistar really take the reins in our region. So we're returning to something that was quite standard, and already I see a pretty strong early 2v2 lane with the Leona to pair up. So maybe LGD do have to go for something a little bit more safe in the Ezreal that you mentioned before, Penguin, you smart sir. I would also say that the Xayah kind of facilitates that role. Of course, you have that late game, the hyper carry potential as well. So never mind, screw that. Let's just go for a Lucian.
Yeah, go for the Lucian. We saw it in the first game there for Ford, or sorry, second game for Fords. This time it's going to be Kramer picking up the Lucian into that bot side, and the Seraphine now locked in as well. So LGD got themselves a mishmash of good teamfight ultimates, a good 1-3-1 split push. They're kind of looking to tick all the boxes. They
really are. I mean, this is a composition that's, you know, beyond my level of capacity of brain. So I'll think about that a little bit more, Penguin, to see if I can give our viewers some kind of input. I do feel like, however, RW, this would be beautiful. This would really facilitate bottom lane. You have a stable mid as the Azir into Viktor we've already seen abusing that range. Now you have the priority to farm up and put emphasis on the bottom lane. And, you know, GP doesn't do that bad into Gnar either. So I feel like for RW, this is a well-rounded composition that can put Betty into a position to really snowball in this game and kind of survive out from the potential damage that comes from Kramer and Peace.
Yeah, so much disengage and global pressure you get with something like a Gangplank as well. And the Gnar should do okay. I've seen people talk at Gnar as a counter to Gangplank, Gangplank's a counter to Gnar. It's very much a skill-based matchup where both sides will want to be, you know, getting the most out of these champions. We do actually see now both teams locked and loaded, and I'm a little worried for LGD right now because they are lacking a lot in the engaged front of it. They have the big Seraphine ultimate, and then they have the Gnar ult, but the Gnar ult's kind of a janky, you know, sometimes yes, sometimes no, you can play around it. So they're really just relying on the Seraphine encore to really set up any kind of team fight for them into those mid to late game fights.
And I do feel like they're a team that doesn't have to be on the objective first, right? They can kind of come to the party late, and, you know, due to these ultimates and due to people like, you know, Viktor and Gnar you mentioned, and even like Lucian Seraphine, there's an ability to gap close and really take over an area of the map. So I expect like these first, second items around the dragons, around their heralds to be a big priority for LGD, because on the other side, when you have Tristana, when you have Azir, when you have Gangplank, like, how are you ever going to deal with a late game RW. And it's kind of funny because you shift gears, you turn around and you say, well, RW have been a team more focused at the early game. Even in game number 1, we saw, game 2, sorry, they had the early game composition. But going into game 3, they're a team that can afford to sit back, that can afford to absorb some lane pressure from, you know, either getting ganked mid or either bottom lane getting shoved in a little bit. I'd even say, like, you know, even across top side, it feels like RW can afford to lose some control, because as this game goes on, they will be able to abuse that global pressure and abuse the setup on fights if they're at objectives first to really take control. It's a nice way to finish off, Penguin, let's be honest, right? Where what we've seen in this series is chaos. You know, these comps, if they're chaotic, actually could be a lot of fun to watch.
Well, that's the thing, and I'll always say this: are these, like, you know, the 2 bottom teams, or at least bottom 3 of our teams that we have in the league right now? Yes. Does that make a huge difference right now? Not really, because it's just entertaining. It's fun to see what these teams are able to throw at the wall and see what sticks, and that to me is half the fun. You know, it's part of the adventure of LPL. You got to take the good with the bad. You can't always have FBXs and RNGs and EDGs. You got to have your LGDs, your TTs, your OMGs. They have to be part of the package in order to get to the height.
It raises a question, right? When we have 17 teams, like, at what point, you know, are we going to be looking at, you know, too many teams as skill peters off, where there's just such a different environment amongst itself? Remember that we have 25 LDL teams behind them as well. So teams like Young Miracles that are sitting on top right now in the LDL, you know, they could give these teams like Rogue Warriors a bit of a run for their money. And, you know, at the end of the year, we always talk about, like, incorporating another team into the league. Of course, here in 2021, with everything going on, I'm not going to talk about it further, but, you know, we still have 17 teams. But, you know, a lot of the LDL talent can threaten whether it's a team or whether the individual players, right? So if a team's not performing, if a team like RW can't get their stuff together, then there's always that LDL threat that can come in and take over for a team like them.
I think, yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is, like, obviously people look to China as the kind of gold standard for, like, how to, like, get your league going, and the size of it and the popularity of it, and multiple stadiums, of course. But I think China and LPL specifically is the anomaly. There is average about 70 million active players on the Chinese servers, on multiple different servers across the country. So it's you have such a larger pool of talent to try to draw from, that I feel like even if you did add 3 more teams, and we ended up with 20, we're a full Premier League at that point, I still think you will have the, you know, the better players still rising to the top. You'll have the washed ups and the rest of the, you know, the not so great players falling to the bottom. But I still think the LDL will also still be exciting and fun to watch, and seeing who's going to be, you know, pushing up from those moments, because it's just such a huge pool of talent. You know,
as we're waiting to get into this game, because I believe by look on the stage there was a bit of a pause and an issue with the player. I will say that, you know, the LPL and the region itself, obviously there's a huge population, but we also have to remember that there are over 20 servers in the LPL. Like, I think you were pointing out before that there was a tweet done from Reginald, you know, a tweet that I actually am comfortable quoting, that, you know, looks at the player bases from these regions, and LPL having over 70 million active players, which is just insane. You know, it's almost like it's 3-4% of the population, if I'm wrong. I don't know about my math, but and then there's a super server as well for the people that are over Diamond 4, Diamond 3, or D2. I can't remember what it is. Obviously not too good for me, but it's something that, you know, you just look at and you're like, there are so many servers in China, in LPL, in the LPL region, that there's just always new players coming up, and these like 14, 15-year-old player prodigies that you're like, all right, stick them in the LDL, give them a couple of years, and when they turn 17, throw them into the LPL and see how they do. It feels really nice to, you know, talk about something like this, because I just think that LPL just has the best system set up. And
yeah, and even just to add to that, like, you're so close to Korea as well. Like,
yeah,
you have that extra little caveat of like, oh, the Korean servers there, yeah, it's slightly higher ping, but like, it's there. And if you can get up on the Korean, and that's always been the kind of, you know, despite the recent, what I would say, the recent Chinese dominance in the international stages of, like, you know, MSIs and, you know, world championships, of course, and you know, excluding the most recent one. It's basically been a, you know, a filter of like, well, you don't look at the Chinese super server, you look at the Korean solo queue and you see who's at the top of that, because that's still considered the gold standard for how everyone works. And I honestly believe that we will get to a point where there are about 20 teams in LPL. They might even just I don't know where obviously the competitive nature of everything is going, but we might drop, you know, the spring split and just have a league that you play each other twice, like again, like a Premier League. You play 38 series over 7 months until you get to the World Championship, and that to me feels like the natural progression for this. But we shall no longer fill for time as they finally fixed whatever was the issue on the stage. And everyone here is waiting with bated breath to see what kind of a dumpster fire this kind of game is. We're jumping into game 3.
I love this intellectual discussion, and then you go, let's go. Is it going to be a dumpster fire? So, fantastic.
It's not if it's going to be a dumpster fire, it's what kind of dumpster fire it's going to be.
Hey, sometimes if a dumpster fire is all you got, you respect it, you pay homage to it. So that's what I'll try and do here. You know, as we're going into this game, just a side note, waiting for Worlds Finals to be best of 7. That'll be exhausting for players, but man, as a viewer, that would be incredible. But look, I'll digress.
I think it'd be exhausting for the players as well, or for the viewers. You'd be like going like game 7. You're like, oh god, I'm exhausted. I don't know if I can go on with this. Like that's a long time.
True. It is a while, and that's probably why it won't change. Anyway, look, I'll lead us into this game. What we're talking about before we got into actually a big favorite discussion of mine about the server and the player base was that, you know, there is a lot of scaling here on RW to keep it simple. Like the scaling advantage is quite heavily there, but of course for LGD, their ability to turn a fight using Gnar, using Viktor, Udyr feels really nice, and to weave through the fights for Kramer and Peace too. So we'll see how we go. I want to see Kramer get into a healthy position in this early game that relies on Quay on this Udyr pick, and of course, how Haro manages it, as both these junglers will just be starting to farm up on opposite sides of the map. And Penguin, I'll also say, looking at level 6 points for RW feels really nice. There's a lot of kill pressure with Ziv's ulti too, so something that Kramer and Peace might have to respect.
Something they definitely have to respect. Like you said, it's the big level 6 spikes that can come out from, you know, the Leona, and so of course even a level 2, honestly, it's actually pretty huge. I feel like this you know, Seraphine and Lucian pickup right now is just to basically quell and to stop the level 2 100% all in you get with the Zenith Blade into the Shield of Daybreak, that then combos into a rocket jump and then the rocket bomb on top of it. So there's a hell of a lot of damage you can do with a Tristana Leona, despite it being more traditionally seen as a late game kind of scaling composition. Tristana early game has been absolutely insane, and something actually I'm curious about is I want to see how the side of LGD work around this Gnar, because this is the first time now this series we've seen Colt on something that isn't a Scion, so it's not 100% inherently a weak side laner, and I want to see if they're able to maybe get something going for him to keep the Gangplank down and get the Gnar to his, you know, kind of level 6 and even like higher items to take them team fights.
Yeah, when he has that threat to all in and, you know, kind of force out orange, remember that you have the Evolve W when you're into the Mega Gnar, and then also the Gnar against the wall, so you can kind of play tricks on the Gangplank. Just note in the early levels, of course, Ziv with the range on Parlay plus Grasp, you can do a lot of good trading, and I think that's what Ziv has started out the game with, as he's pushing in the wave. You talk about what LGD want to do with the Gnar, you know, again as well, mentioning around these early objectives, it does feel like LGD wanting to snowball, need to utilize Cult 6, need to utilize the ability to find these first couple of dragons too, so I would like to see how jungle influences that and how LGD managed to get the setup. As Taichuan actually missing the engage onto Peace won't matter though, as still get the trade back, and Peace and Kramer still pushing in the wave, as you kind of expect here, now hitting level 3.
I think for both these teams, something that we need to discuss a little bit more as well is that success for someone like LGD and Rogue Warriors is a very different conversation than, say, someone like EDG and RNG. And I think that the idea that this is something kind of like a false equivalency, where people are like, oh, you should be going into every game with the, you know, the idea that you should be winning it and all this. Of course, everyone wants to be doing that, but you have to also face facts and be realistic about it as well. So in my eyes, for me, as we're going to stop myself here as they jump into this bot side.
It's you, Penguin. This is you, baby.
Oh yeah, this is me. I'm sorry, I was doing color and I thought you were going to take the play-by-play. It doesn't matter. No one died. I got a bit confused. I was too busy trying to pass it off to
I
you.
got into my color zone, bro. I'm not shouting today. Today's all about me getting tilted and pretending I understand the game higher than a platinum level is. Okay, Forge onto Uniboy. I think he's actually in trouble, Penguin. No, he's not. Never mind. Ignore me.
No, he should be fine. He got himself the gravity field down, but Forge pretty much knows that Quay is up to this Raptor camp. Yep, sees him here. Should be able to Shurima shuffle his way out. Doesn't even need to, as Quay is just trying to get a nice reset here for his mid laner. He's taking a little bit of punishment. And again, similar to what we saw in game 1, we did see Forge with the Azir and Uniboy with the Viktor. And it was very much a fact that Uniboy's Viktor was falling a little bit behind. It's kind of to be expected with the extra range you get. But then as the mid to late game team fights happen, well, speaking of team fights, Xuan goes in, does burn the cleanse. That's one summoner down, and they back themselves away. So gain one summoner, don't really gain anything else.
I think they expected Quay coming down here, and he was. So it was good respect paid by Haro. Just clears out the wave and backs away. LGD, however, will get the shove into this wave while it's Xuan and Betty who are actually going to make the return back. That's going to give Quay the opportunity to start up the Dragon here as well. So a bit of an advantage for LGD in this early game, which is what you like to see. And I think as well, we're seeing the first Dragon go down at perfect timing. 6 minutes into the game, this is what you want from LGD. Early objective control, utilizing the Udyr, taking as many scuttles as you can. And we'll be looking towards that Herald coming up in a couple of minutes to see how LGD actually abuse some of these lanes. So again, Penguin, we're just seeing an early game that should be played out exactly how LGD are.
What do you think about our cast so far, Hysterics? How do you think we've been doing?
I mean, I'm pretty shocking as a color, let's be quite honest,
Same here.
I'll be honest, like, the cool thing about casting is, throughout the years of doing play-by-play, I feel like my knowledge of the game has increased exponentially, and how comps write out. I think it was talking to Lyric quite a lot that when you're actually looking at a game, you can't just look at a composition like pure scaling. You need to look at like, how does this run into LGD's comp right here? This is actually going to beef up a bit. Hang on, are you ready for a fight?
Haro gets the steal. I am indeed. Haro gets the steal, but there is no fight to be had. As everyone backs away. But back to your point, you were saying you were learning about the game.
Yeah, no. The biggest thing is, like, you have to look at how... You can't look at a comp in isolation. You have to look at how, in response, it goes into the comp it's up against, right? So, for example, here against Rogue Warriors, like, they have good scaling, but what I've noticed on the board while we're having a bit of a chat is that the engage is limited. You rely on Forge, you rely on Xuan, as Forge actually getting out of there with a shifting sands. So that's again why I was talking a lot about, RW being on objectives first so they can push away LGD so that they can get the objective and then just kind of abuse some of the range. Xuan running away once again, where LGD, have the ability to reposition. They have the ability to really utilize Cult in those tight corridors as well. So it feels like there's a lot of interactions here that are going to be important running into this third game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think when you're watching, some of the best League of Legends in the world, and also some of the worst, depending on the series you're casting, you tend to just have a general better sense of how things work. Overall, and it kind of brings you up into a little bit of a higher knowledge bar. Doesn't help me with my mechanics. I'm still an old man. Got boomer mechanics on me. I don't think I'm boomer just yet. I'm definitely not a zoomer. Okay. So we can see now in this bot side, a lot of pressure coming in. The Seraphine and the Lucian will do just a lot of poke damage. You can see the Kellin coming out, bringing both the Leona and the Tristana down to about 2/3 each. Haro takes the Rift Herald up on top side, and now they're looking to try and maybe get Ziv a little bit more gold in his back pocket, get this Gangplank rolling a bit.
Yeah, this is a perfect lane to put it down. Wants to clear out the wave as soon as possible, and Ziv in a healthy enough position where he can stay. Oh, okay. But Orange is up, and Haro not going to put it down for now. I mean, I respect this decision, but it's definitely the lane I would pick, considering that LGD are making a play for the bottom lane. That's 2 plates already gone with Quay hovering.
Yeah, the jungle presence they're able to bring in here, and Quay just about to be able to get his recall off. Should have been actually fine now that I look at his summoners. He had Flash, he had also had the upgraded steel-capped boots, so he is totally fine in that particular regards, but now you can see Betty. He's going to have a little bit of a sore time right now. The Seraphine Lucian is oppressive, to say the least. He's only about 8 or so CS behind, so it's not the worst thing in the world. It's still definitely winnable, but it's going to be a while before he's able to go toe-to-toe with this Lucian.
And it doesn't matter if you have explosive trades, because there's good sustain in this lane. You get the Omnivamp coming out of Doran's Blade, but also Peace just with the sustain coming out of Seraphine's kit. So it does feel like you can do no wrong unless you overextend. If you're Kramer, a 10 CS lead you mentioned nets him a bit of a sheen, so he'll be going for that Essence Reaver first item. And Peace already starting to move around as, you know, Forge is clearing some vision, but that'll just be traded off by LGD. And I like that Peace is starting to move as well. With already a massive advantage, they're expecting Kaixuan to do the same.
Essence Reaver now already picked up here for Kramer versus just the boots, a pickaxe, and a couple of lonely swords for the Tristana for Betty. This is going to be a very explosive time now for LGD. They've got the push in the lanes. They've got the advantages that they need. They're the ones that are going to be able to get the first kind of roam off into this dragon that's spawning in 45 or just a little bit over seconds. That is kind of where we expect this team to kind of make their advantages, is around these big team fights of, you know, being able to drop down the Encore, being able to get Colton onto the backside and get a Mega Gnar ultimate onto a wall. That is what you want to see from them, and it's going to be on Rogue Warriors to be able to just disengage from that and make sure that they're not getting caught out.
And I should reiterate on something I said before. I don't really necessarily feel like Rogue Warriors have to be on objectives first. I do feel like time in the game is the most crucial point here, where we already mentioned LGD playing a more early game oriented comp around these first couple of objectives. Stacking up dragons will put that condition into their back pocket. It does feel like GPL and Leona Solarflare are going to play a pivotal point in the engage. Both are available if they manage to find a pick, and for RW, bottom lane.
Flash Bear slap, there it is. The Encore does land, but a good buffer by Betty gets the rocket jump in time. So, Flash down for Quay and the Encore down for Peace. Do Rogue Warriors want to try and maybe look for this fight? They're just going to keep Ziv up on that top side, as Gnar has already roamed down. Now, Rogue Warriors moving forward into this dragon pit. They know that this dragon is going down. Now they're going to commit the TP here from the Gangplank. Here we go. Trying to go see to get the Solar Flare goes down. The dragon does go in favor of LGD. There is the cannon barrage. There is nobody hit by Forge's Emperor's Divide, and that is just an unfortunate movement there from him. First blood goes to LGD now, as we can see the Leona trying to run away. No flash, nowhere to go. 2 kills going over to LGD to get the dragon, to get everything else.
See, again, Rogue Warriors, they're going to make the same play whether they're on a scaling comp or an early game composition. They had no business going for the dragon because mid was pushing against. They didn't have the setup. Colt was there first into the Mega Gnar. And of course, Ziv had to TP down, who used the cannon barrage, and I actually didn't think that ultimate was too great. So again, Rogue Warriors didn't have any business playing this fight out, and Forge just whiffs the ulti. Really nice flash from Uniboy to compliment him, but at the end of the day, LGD, such an easy fight to win from here. They group up as the highest stack, and it's just 2 easy pickings from there. So really nice from LGD, and Rogue Warriors walking into their deaths.
Well, Rogue Warriors now find themselves behind by 2 dragons, and if the previous 2 games are to go by, they
this is sick. What's you? You know?
I mean, there's not much else I can add to what you just said. You described everything so elegantly and perfectly. You're just so good at this, man.
I mean, I was just expecting, you know,
it's unfair.
That for me was more tilt, you know, because honestly, like, I don't know why RW decided to make that choice of playing the fight after the dragon was pretty much already gone. Again, this is a comp that just, you know, wants to sit back, and first couple of objectives aren't too big, but we're to a point now where we're going to have an early soul if this continues on again, right? You know, 13 minutes in the game, double dragon already up for LGD. They've got another Herald spawning too, and I'm expecting with Quay backing with the Mythic either there or close to being there, as you see it now picked up, it's just going to be easy for LGD to keep taking these objectives and really abuse the tempo they can create with, I think, this bottom lane and cracking it open.
See, there they go. They have about a 15 or so CS lead in this bottom lane, just a little bit under it, as we see both junglers pathing down towards the spot side. It's very hard for something. This is kind of what we talked about the Graves for a bit. Now, we've seen Graves pop off and do exceptionally well, but if he's not able to get those big advantages where he's able to 1v1 pretty much anybody, he doesn't really seem to do a lot. And as I say that, oh, dearie me. Solar Flare goes down to try and buy some time. Quay is taking a little bit more damage than he probably likes. The turn is there, but the explosive shot is just not what you need right there. Betty getting caught out, forced a flash. They still have the Chaos Storm if they needed it, but another kill in favor of LGD, and they get the teleport out of Forge. Uniboy did answer, but this feels like it's just LGD just going from strength to strength to strength.
They are. They're playing through that bottom lane. They don't even need the Herald, and Quay just comes down and slaps him in the face. I mean, Kai Xuan should have expected that the next turnabout would be towards his lane, and doesn't pay that respect. RW get punished yet again here. And note that Kramer, off the back of it, is the one benefiting. He gets another free wave, he gets to push in, picks up yet another kill off the trade. 2-0 now, Penguin. He's almost towards his mythic item, and I have to say, LGD in this early game in such a good position. It feels like the snowball from here is going to be really hard from RW to control. And again, these objectives are going to be pretty much free for LGD in the next 5 minutes.
Hopefully they do a little bit better of a setup to try and not get the mid-game to go absolutely horribly. But I completely agree with you. They are in a hugely advantageous position. And now where can they take it from here? You can see the top side, it's dead even. Jungle, it's a little bit of an advantage there for Quay. Mid lane, it's a little bit of an advantage there for Uniboy. Big advantage, though, in that bot side. It's an Essence Reaver difference between the Lucian and the Tristana. Betty is not having a good time as Ziv might be in a little bit of trouble. Gets stunned up. Does he get knocked up against the wall? No, he has to flash because he did not have the ability of the orange to keep him safe, and that is another summoner down.
I love that play from Colt. I mean, that was just nicely done as textbook. He W's down, he wallops to force out the orange, waits for Ziv, and then comes in the Gnar to pretty much force out the flash. So that's the interaction you see. That's how you can play with the Mega Gnar against the GP. You're even seeing a bit of a CS lead in that lane as well as Kramer just unleashing havoc. And Betty can't be anywhere near him at this point. Like, what do you do if you're this Tristana? You try and clear the waves as quick as possible and just don't look at Kramer in the face.
Yeah, Kramer is a very, very scary Lucian right now. 2,000 gold lead almost exclusively onto him for the side of LGD. And again, Rogue Warriors looking to try and find some kind of advantage. They get the push into mid lane. It looks like they're going to try and path up towards that Rift Herald. While they have lost bot lane priority, they are going to give up the third dragon. So we're going to see Mountain Soul point here for LGD. And that's a very important Dragon Soul as well, because LGD, they will not be very tanky unless they can get all these souls. And I feel like right there is like the perfect example of why this is going to be very difficult now for Rogue Warriors to really kind of deal with this team should soul point go to them at 22 minutes.
And again, mitigates like a lot of the burst that comes out of, you know, this combo we talked about for LGD as well. Also mitigates a lot of the sustained damage that you're going to get out of Kramer. So I like the choice here for LGD, putting themselves on soul point yet again, Penguin, at 22 minutes as Betty. Do not walk into the lane, sir.
No, definitely not the idea you wanted to see there coming out from Betty, as they are going to trade one turret for one. So Ziv does pick up that one into that top side. They have Rift Herald in the back pocket here for Rogue Warriors, but it looks like they're just giving up straight away this tier 2 in the bot lane. That just opens up so much of that jungle. We talk about how these tier 2s early in the game just create so much black space, that fog of war, that you don't even know what's going on inside your own area, so you have to give it up. You have to let those camps go to the wayside, and someone like an Udyr can just keep numbing them up, no problem whatsoever. But Haro, with this Rift Herald, looking to try and maybe see if they can go for something here with the Leona, but there's a ward there, so the Gnar should just be staying away, far, far away from this.
I'd like to see it drop down mid. I think, honestly, right now, you know, opening up the map, giving some more space to people like GP, more space to people like Forge as well. I remember that, you know, clearing out side waves and just kind of hovering back is pretty much the name of the game here for RW, keeping waves at an even point so that you can manage this mid game better. Because we want to see that RW get to their second items here. They're heading up into 3 minutes 45 of a Mountain Soul on the Rift. And LGD are just in such a good position. Dude, Kramer's going to get yet another turret. He's picked up 3 this game. And he's pretty much the gold lead, supporting a 40 CS lead in the bottom lane. Penguin, before, he had an item and a half. Now he has 2, and I'm pretty sure he'd be on 2.5 in the next pack.
He is very, very far ahead. You can see now Quay with a vision control up on this top side, just piloting Uniboy to the turret, making sure they can get that one done. Ziv playing very respectfully, knows that he is not in a good position. Drops down the cannon barrage. That's the power that you get with the Gangplank. You're able to defend your turret for a little bit longer, but not for as long as he probably likes. They're going to just try and trade it down in the bot side for that tier 1.
Also with this build, you get a lot more ability haste as well, so GP ult not on as long as you'd expect. But meanwhile, you're right, RW, the response down this bottom lane is finally dropping to Herald, but LGD are going to push in yet another wave, and yes, it is a trade for RW, and when you're the team behind that does favor you, but at this point in the game, LGD getting more resources in the jungle in this top side. Depends if RW can try and push and get another turret in the bottom lane.
They should be able to. This is pretty much 2 turrets for the price of 1. That's honestly, straight up, that's a great second Herald play. Something that, you know, a lot of analysts talk about, the bait of the second Herald, how it's not really that valuable. And don't get me wrong, the gold value you get from it is definitely not as worth as it is for the first one. But at the same time, it just feels like you get so much more pressure. With Ziv, oh my god, he didn't have his flash up just in time. And Kramer and the combination with the bear get themselves another kill. So it's 4-0. 2 minutes until that Mountain Soul. Oh, it's starting to look a bit dicey for Rogue Warriors, but that's the last game is to be any consolation. There's definitely opportunities here for Rogue Warriors to try and catch out LGD.
You can't walk up to the waves when Kramer's there and you don't have eyes on Quay. If you don't have the vision, you know that the Udyr is going to be shadowing the strongest member of LGD right now. Well, have a look again because he just moves between Fog of War, and Kramer can just follow up with a culling that pretty much 100-0 Ziv with the help of Quay, deciding for a kill still. Let's be quite honest, that was a dead Gangplank anyway, but good to secure the kill here from Quay, and good shadowing and target control from LGD to keep Kramer snowballing out of control in this game number 3. Penguin, I really fear right now, because this is a BF sword, there's a cloak of agility for Kramer. I mean, this next dragon, he's going to have that Infinity Edge.
Might have it, but might not have enough time to finish it here. As we can see, 1 minute until that dragon is spawning. But yeah, I feel like you look at the kill participation, it's Kramer 202, it's Quay 202. They both have 100% kill participation. As culling brings the Leona down to literally 1/5 of her HP. But this is a bit of a cheeky play coming out right now from the side of Rogue Warriors. Yeah, no, you can't go for this. You have to run away. You might even have to use the ultimate here from Forge. Yep. Has to use the Emperor's Divide, which will be now down for this dragon fight in 40 seconds. Again, I like the idea, Rogue Warriors. I think you got yourself on the right plan. It's just far too early for you thinking you could... You don't even have the Nash's 2 right now. You can't just 2-man that Baron. Even if no one arrived, I don't even think they can still take it.
It's the Hail Mary, because the other games run so far out of control that LGD can't put a foot wrong. You know, I said that in previous games and look at what happened, but at the very least here, you still have LGD in a great position. They have some scaling elements as well, but most importantly, they have a soul up in 10 seconds, and that flash for flash, I actually think, is not good for RW, because that's their engage in Leona. Kaishuan has his ulti, but no flash available.
And they're waiting for that Emperor's Divide to come back up, but Kaishuan is dead. Cannon Barrage goes down. Okay. This is just going to really do nothing right now, and this is 5 kills to 0, a 5,000 gold lead, a Mountain Soul to boot. Put it back in your back pocket, get those nice lovely shields, and that has a double whammy because the Seraphine empowered W gives you a healing based on your shield. So, you know, if you even have the shield and you're a little bit half health, she can heal you for a little bit more. A little tidbit of information there. But yeah, it's just... I don't even know what you can do right now if you're Rogue Warriors. You can rely on scaling, but again, similar to the last game from LGD's side, you have to get there before you can really rely on it.
Penguin, I'm going to put in a hashtag. Hashtag bring back Chocho. Honestly, like... Kaishuan this series has not looked good at all, and walking into River when you know that you've just burnt your flash, you have a solar flare, but you're the main form of engage, yet you have to make a play around the soul, right? So I get the position of walking in, but for Kaishuan just goes a little bit too deep, doesn't set up the engage in solar flare at all for the chance of RW setting up for the play around Dragon. And yeah, this was definitely a support diff in this series if it ends like this. And for LGD Mountain Soul now, Elder coming up as well. That'll be the nice cherry on top. 4,000 gold lead. And at this point, I mean, you don't even need the Baron. You've got to pay respect to Kramer. He can even sit in a side lane. You can put Colt in the other version of the side lane. Quay hovers between, and Uniboy and Peace pretty much just play around mid. So I feel like at this point, you can do whatever you want for LGD. Lane assignments are very easy to execute. And Rogue Warriors are trying to make a pick so that they get something back in this game.
They're just trying to delay right now. They're trying to see if they can get some kind of, as you say, delay on it, because there's a 3,500 gold lead just on Kramer and between Kramer and Betty. There is an infinity edge between these two AD carries right now. That's how big of a gap there is. As Quay walks in and finds nobody. So they back themselves up. They don't need to go anywhere further with this. They're just going to try and set up Baron Vision, and that is going to be the next objective for LGD. They do not need Forge doing what Uniboy did in Game 2, so they're going to probably look to try and be a little bit more safe with that objective.
You can see that LGD is just trying to clear away some of this vision. I mean, clearing it away so that Rogue Warriors have to face check, and that's where the strength of LGD comes. Once again, Kramer with the culling. LGD at full health, they're going to keep pushing forward.
Kramer's so big right now. You have the Natural Astute, though, and the Leandri's Anguish onto 4s. So there are opportunities. You're starting to get a couple of items here for the side of Rogue Warriors, but it's just, you need to find Kramer. That is your win condition right now. You kill this Lucian, that gold lead just drops like an absolute hammer, and then all of a sudden it's a very, very even fight. Not only that, but you'll also get a nice 1,000 or 800 gold bounty off of him, as he's just sitting on 500 kill bounty right now. So, but with no vision right now for Rogue Warriors, LGD feel very confident going for this Baron. Rogue Warriors, they got the Scryers in.
They want to turn.
They have a pink ward down. There's 4,000. There's the cannon barrage. They get that global out of the Gangplank, and they back themselves away. They get the global. They get the kind of objective to come back up, and they have the mountain soul, so they can keep going onto this. They don't have any problem tanking this up.
I mean, I was going to say it's a win-win. You pull out the ultimate from the Gangplank as well. You can just go back to this objective, clear away any residual vision that RW were able to get coming towards the pit, and the beauty is that, you know, for LGD, they can turn for the play or they can just burst down the Baron. So it's a win-win as long as they don't give Haro the option to 50-50. So they back away, they'll do it another day, and LGD still with that gold lead in hand. But it also gives them the time to clear out some of these waves and, you know, make the threat towards Baron or towards the Elder that's up in 230. Let's just remember that Elder for this team composition of LGD would truly be the nail in the coffin, and they can push these sides and dominate with the help of their Lucian once again.
Well, the Lucian's gone back, picked himself up a Zeal, so has even more crit chance to add to his arsenal. And right now, for Rogue Warriors, they're just trying to wait for the next 2 minutes. If they can get 3 items onto the Tristana before this Elder Drake spawns, which they don't seem too far away from it, they might, and I put a very big asterisk on this, might be able to look to try and take a fight. But I love these 2 Randuin's Omens. You mentioned them a little bit as well. Great little pickups here to stop Betty from really doing anything. It also stops the crit plank, as Betty now just forced straight away. He's by himself. Colt is off to the side. There was 4 people mid. He had to jump away. He cannot defend this on his own. There's
so much mobility on the team when you have a Stride Breaker Gnar, when you have an Udyr who just, you saw, use the chem tank to close the gap. With the Randuin's Omen too, the active is just so useful considering that slowdown is going to be a thorn in Rogue Warriors' side. But yeah, in the side lane, still pushing down these turrets, adding pressure to the mid lane too. LGD just double back to this play around the Baron, but as you can see, RW have a really nice ward outside the pit. That'll spot out whether they're doing the Baron or not. Still hasn't been cleansed away, so RW don't have to face check, but almost fought out.
Feel like Kramer could have fully committed to that one there and really even got all the summoners out, or at bare minimum got the flash out of Forge, but decides not to go for it, didn't have full information, and decides to back away. They do have that nice little ward, like you said, so this is perfect for the side of Rogue Warriors. They know now that it is being started, and now they can start to position themselves a little bit. Quay is not in the pit, though, so this is a smiteless jungle right now. As we can see, the Forge has to use the Emperor's Divide, and that extra little rock puts an extra bit of distance between him and the rest of his pursuers, but the Baron down to about 5,000 HP, 4,000 HP, 3,000 HP. They're waiting for Mega to kind of come out. He's going to flash it over the wall. Gangplank gets it! Gangplank gets to steal another Baron steal at the 28-minute mark. My God, these teams just can't take an objective.
No, they can't. They're 7-0, Penguin, but they lose another Baron. LGD will be going for the Elder, considering they took down 2 of RW, but the Baron may be able to help RW defend and keep the game going. I just can't believe Ziv was able to get this. As we watch again, it feels like the ultimate was what took it. Cannon Barrage comes down, and yeah, it's the smite from Haro.
He doesn't have smite. He doesn't have smite. He used it to try and get on top of Forge, and they end up losing. Oh, Quay, that's unforgivable. They will pick up the Elder Drake, but it's a 2-minute buff. You've got 2 minutes left, or 2.5 minutes. Like you said, this Baron will be able to just negate all of this Elder Drake push, and oh, it gets Rogue Warriors back into the game. Now, they're still a little bit behind. It's still 5,000 gold in favor of LGD, and they have the Elder Drake and the Mountain Soul, but oh, that's got to feel bad.
They've got 0 kills, but they have the scaling on this team, and they're starting to build up the items. They'll be able to push out the waves, and it'll be up to LGD now to force the play, right? They have the Elder Dragon, and this next 2 minutes of play, is so crucial. You'll be watching Kramer trying to be super aggressive here, get waves in order, get the sides pushing up as well, and try and crack the base of Rogue Warriors so that LGD have that next Baron, so they have the avenues to play through. It's going to be difficult, but Teleport is going to start it off.
Yeah, it looks like LGD know they need to try and get the fight. They need to get a team fight here, but like Azir at level 15 Tristana, so she has got herself an extra bit of range. It's becoming very difficult to force these fights, especially considering you have the Baron now, which is just going to be buffing up their minions to keep them as safe as possible. This is a hard fight right now for the side of LGD, and good wave clear here for Rogue Warriors means they're not really contested. You only have a minute left on this Elder, and Haro still needs to be careful. There's still a lot of damage that can come down. There's the kind of barrage to clear out the wave. Betty caught between a rock and a hard place, but yeah, they're just, there's too many ways for them to clear this. Rogue Warriors should be able to defend their base.
And this is the thing as well, LGD are going to receive poke because the wave clear out of Rogue Warriors is a lot more long range, right? You have Azir, you have Tristana. LGD have to commit further to the wave to go up and take this turret, as you can see. Finally, they get up. Colt!
Oh, he jumps in. There's a great Emperor's Divide, but an encore to start it all off, and that is the end of that for the side of Rogue Warriors. They held until they could hold no more, and the extra little bit of damage that you get with those Elder Drake procs just means there's nowhere for them to run, nowhere for them to go. Betty shut down on the fountain. They have no more minions, but there is no one left alive. It's a double-double. It might be a quote-unquote official penta. Never mind, Gnar going to pick up that one, and that is going to be the game and the series to LGD. They do not give up a single death in their third game, and they take their second win of the season.
After what was a Baron steal from Ziv's ultimate on Gangplank, turns around, the Elder does its work, and like I said, LGD had to make such great use of the Elder Dragon for that game to stay in their favor. Otherwise, it just felt like they would have been outscaled with the composition from RW. They get into the base, they make the play. It is Colt in the end who has the flash Gnar, followed up by Peace's ultimate as hugs go through onto Ziv from I actually didn't see who hugged him in the end, but
I didn't actually see that. I didn't see who was the one who hugged him, but it was yeah, honestly, it was a great game 3 from LGD, great game 1 from LGD, a great mid game in game 2 from LGD, and they get the win. That's the important thing right now, because they are looking, like we've mentioned many times, at a monstrous schedule. They go to next Wednesday where they play Team WE. Then they play LNG, two very high-up playoff teams. Then they play FBX, a top 4 team in the league. Then they play E-Star, which is a little bit of an easier match, but this schedule doesn't get easier, and they have so many games to cover.
Yeah, they really do. It is good that this is a start, but the way it was won was just so questionable here. I mean, this is what we're looking at with the bottom of the barrel. This is what the bottom of the LPL looks like. It's a little bit messy. It's not peak League of Legends, but the fans, I'm sure, still enjoy it anyway. But I mean, Penguin, I'm just surprised how that game ended. It felt like RW would be able to hold on to the base, but there's a lot of engage on the side of LGD. They're not paying respect to the inhibitor turret, stepping too far forward. They get punished pretty hard, and yeah, man, that was 100% the way the game should have ended, right? Like, after what we've been through that series, of course that was going to end with a random Baron steal and a potential throw. I'm just glad that LGD held true and were able to keep it deathless in the end.
Yeah, kept it deathless, only lost 3 turrets and effectively the Rift Herald or 2, and of course the Baron. So as near perfect as you can possibly get, but I still think, like, coming back to reality, even for LGD, like they are one of our bottom 4 teams. Like they will be between 17th and 13th. I don't think anyone is expecting them to be any higher than that. If they are, fantastic. Delighted to see myself prove wrong. But for them and Rogue Warriors, like Rogue Warriors now are 1-9. So they have 6 series left in the season. That is not a lot of time and not a lot of games to turn this one around. I feel like Rogue Warriors might be at the bottom.
I'm just going to say it. They're at the bottom. I mean, Rogue Warriors, with what I've seen, there is no way this team is going to pick up more than 3 wins, in my opinion. I'm going to be harsh. I'm going to be fair. I've also been told that, you know, I'm a little bit silly because I totally forgot. Of course, it was Uniboy hugging Ziv. You know, we remember AHQ, of course. So thank you very much to Lyric who pointed that out, because I had a bit of a mind blank. I'm like, hang on, we're thinking LMS hugging Ziv, and I'm like, wait.
I hadn't seen Uniboy that much, so I don't know what he looks like. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't already know if that was Uniboy or not, and I don't want to say. I mean, because in case I'm just 100% wrong.
Technically as well. Remember that, you know, Kramer and Betty were on the same team in Flash Walls at one point. Remember that Kramer was actually in the LMS, and I think Betty was under him at that time when Kramer actually went to Worlds on the roster. So there is a lot of cool little rivalry here, a lot of teammates running against each other today. And, you know, it will feel good if you're LGD, especially if you're someone like Uniboy. His debut split in the LPL. He is performing decently enough, and I think there's always room to go up from here. But, I think in this series, like, for LGD, their learnings are going to be, you know, mid-game shot calling, right? Like, I think for both these teams. What were you saying? It was mid to late game shot calling. Feels like it's the biggest issue with these two teams.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like this is the biggest problem with them, and you know, it's hard to quantify that because in the LPL, like, it's so competitive. You can't just be okay. Like, I feel like in certain other leagues around the world, you can get away with being like, meh, like, it's okay. We can get away with these things. You can't get away with that here. I don't think, like, if there's too many teams and there's too many people vying for, like, high up in the table, that if you try to just, you know, wing it or be like, oh, look, for example, I think if you have an early game like TSM's early game is notoriously bad right now in the LCS. Yes. But I think if you had that here, you wouldn't be 7-3 like they are right now. You would be probably like, you know, probably 5-5, maybe 4-6, because there's just too many teams that will just punish you so damn hard. And for LGD and for Rogue Warriors, that feels like it hones true for these teams, that the league is just too competitive for them to really just kind of like throw away random Barons. You know, you give that Baron in game 2 to IG or to EDG, game's over. In fact, we saw it from EDG. EDG were miles behind against V5, and then V5 gave them one fight, and they took Elder, they took Baron, they took the game over. Right, like, I feel like that's just the way the LPL works.
Bro, Lyric has PTSD from that, man. You shouldn't bring it up. that pulls him down. I know he's watching.
I'm sorry. He's not casting with me today, so.
Cry in the corner. You're right. Like, there's a bar set in the LPL. There's a really big one as well. And I think it's like that OMG, TT, LGD, Rogue Warriors, E-Star. They're all in that bottom pile that's like, these are our weakest teams. Anyone here could beat anyone, but we're expecting them to lose the majority of their games. And I think, you know, maybe TT has shown they're a little cut above that, even E-Star at some point, but I think we know who our bottom teams are. I think we know what we expect when we see LGD Rogue Warriors, you know, on the pamphlet for today, on the setup. Again, while we talked about today being a bit of a warm-up towards RNG versus FPX. But I think that's what makes the LPL interesting, right? We have so many different teams, so many different style of teams. They're not perfect, but they are fun League of Legends to watch because they sometimes bring a rabbit out of the hat for you to enjoy.
Yeah, well, we're going to have our MVP from that third and final game of our first series. It is going to be Kramer on this Lucian. It was really not going to be anybody else. Guy had 100% kill participation, 8-0 and 4. He just looked good on the Lucian. I think it's definitely something of a pocket pick for him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, taking Lucian to the bottom lane, you want to see him snowball early. You want to see him take over games. And the priority put from Quay to focus on this lane, it was perfect. Peace linking up with the Seraphine as well, giving the lane priority over to Kramer and Peace. It was, I think, a really good early game from LGD. Definitely deserve it here for Kramer. And you could see in these fights, he was just such a high-impact player. His burst was insane. And that's when you get into the Giga Broken Lucian territory, where we all remember on release, like, how good this champion felt. Well, when you're fed like this, you shred through the front line, and you're easily able to carry games.
Yeah, honestly, it felt like he found his gears on this champion and just never stopped shifting up and higher and higher and higher. He just able to, we could see him a couple of different times using the culling to just set up plays that just led into kills. You could see him going and just using it to just get towers. You mentioned it in the cast. He got 4 out of all 4 towers he was directly involved with taking. Yep. So honestly, fantastic game from him. Fantastic move from them overall. And yeah, I think the LGD, they'll take this win at 2-5. They're feeling positive. They have a lot of games to play, but at the same time, they're only 1 win away from where Suning are at 3-5. So yeah, you take the wins.
I think it's super fair here, Penguin. I think it's super fair. I mean, LGD have a lot of games to go. Who knows? They could be a team that hits middle of the pack. You're talking about could hit playoffs. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But we are going to send it over to Wendy, who has an interview with one of our victorious players.